Hi, welcome to our webinar. Today we'll be answering a very important question. Is PMO a necessary evil or an efficiency booster? This topic will be discussed by our wonderful speakers, Laura Parra Garcia, CIO and Technology Advisor at Cellnex Telecom, with over 25 years of professional experience in technology and digital transformation in companies of various fields, and Marysia Lechowicz, Senior Manager at PwC Poland, working in the PMO team, with over 20 years of professional experience in project management field. And I'll be moderating this meeting, Karolina Basgier, project specialist at PwC Poland, also working in the PMO team. Before we move to our conversation, please know that you can ask questions via chat to Marysia and Laura. We'll answer them during the Q&A session in the end of this webinar. Okay, let's get down to business. What is the typical perception of PMOs in organizations? Laura, what do you think?
Thank you, Carolina. And dzień dobry. Good morning to everyone. And thanks to PwC for this invitation. Thank you to Marlena, to Carolina, and Marisha for giving me this opportunity to discuss this very interesting topic together with such experienced colleagues. When it comes to the PMO perception, I don't think that telco industry is an exception. From my experience, what the main perception might be that is a unit for controlling, to control and to provide aggregated information to the C-level about what is going on the organizations. What I miss here is the focus on the results, but I don't think that the perception of the PMO is related to the results. Other perception might be reporting, that the PMO is dedicated to produce reports to tell what has been happening, what has been done in the organization, to produce metrics and to feed those metrics. What do you think?
Well, actually, I share some of your experience, Laura, of PMOs being, the controlling body, the one that's providing reports. And quite often we are actually being treated as a compliance police, all those people that chase others to provide reports and ensure that that all the templates are being filled in the right way. But there is also a different perception, and that is mostly common in the PMOs that are supporting a specific project. And there is actually a joke that summarizes it really well. So if you won't mind, I will tell it. And it goes like this. How many PMOs do you need to exchange a light bulb? And I will not make it awkward for you to wait for the answer. The answer is two. One, to explain again that it is not the role of the PMO to be exchanging light bulbs. And the other one, to realize that explaining that again is totally futile and actually exchange the light bulb anyway. And I believe that says a lot about the perception that many of us actually encounter when working for the PMOs. And I think that those differences in perception may be resulting from the different roles that PMO has in different organizations. And that was actually a survey done by PwC and PMI, Project Management Institute, on the maturity of PMOs within multiple organizations, on the trends that are there, and on the impact on the performance. In that survey, over 4,000 people were asked specific questions. And based on that survey, we have some interesting results that I would also like to share. So starting with the role of the PMO, here you can see the answers that the participants gave. So I believe no surprises for the top three. So project, program, and portfolio management office. But as you can see here, we have a huge variety. So we have, enterprise project management office and strategy management office. And that would sit, I believe, very high in the organization, mostly contributing to strategy and doing the controlling function as well, providing those reports. But at the other end, we have project support office that is very clearly dedicated to supporting specific projects, maybe even exchanging light bulbs in certain situations. So I believe that the perception may vary depending on what organization we are working in and where we actually sit in there.
Yes, I think it depends on the culture of the organization as well, because I was working in a very small mobile operator in Spain that is, at that time, was the fourth operator serving 4 million customers, 4 million mobile subscriptions. However, we were just 100 people. That was part of the brand. The name of this company was Yoigo. Now it was acquired by MásMóvil in 2017, and MásMóvil is now the third operator in Spain, about to merge with Orange in Spain as well, which means that this industry is changing all the time. But at that moment that we were only 100 people, the C-level didn't need that aggregated view of what is going on the company. So our PMO, our governance for project management, was really focused on what we have to do to reach the goals of the company. And that was very interesting. And on the other hand, I have other experience in the logistics sector that used to be more traditional culture. And in this company that is a French multinational company that is also here in Poland, ID Logistics, when someone was not performing properly on their area, was transferred to IT as a PM, as a project manager. So, because there was considered that we were just to coordinate, to report, to tell what is going on, but not really focus on being efficient.
So people for every task. Okay. So we already know what is your perception. Now let's check what is the perception of our participants. Tell us what you think. So how are PMOs perceived in organizations? You can choose as many answers as you wish. Okay.
Yeah, we are really keen to learn if you have similar experiences and how diverse that they would be. So looking forward to learning more. Laura, what do you think? What will be the top one?
Well, I expect that is a positive perception.
I would hope so, yes.
Because this is evolving a lot, and since in every sector and every industry, the short-term results is what is being more and more implemented, then PMO can be very effective for that. So let's expect that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think we have the results. So first three, project administrative support, right? We have also link between project and stakeholders, and key source of project information. How would you comment it? Do you agree with those choices?
Go ahead, Laura.
I think it's very aligned with what we have said, that it's very linked, the perception sometimes with the administrative tasks, with provide visibility, but not to boost, to support, to make things happen, and to support the project managers on that, on making things happen. That at the end is what is expected from the organizations to deliver the goals that are defined in the strategy.
That's true. Marysiu, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I actually am very happy that on the second place, what we have is link between projects and stakeholders. And I remember when I was working for a large transformation program that over 300 people were involved in. We as the PMO team were actually treated as the information hub, the source of knowledge, and we were also synthesizing the information from the projects and kind of translating that for the language understood by the business, especially senior stakeholders. So I'm really happy that this role is also very, very high up here, and so is the key source of project information on the third place.
Thank you.
I think it looks promising.
Thank you. Okay, so we know now what is the perception of the PMO. So let's go back to the presentation. So we know this perception, but what PMOs are actually doing, what they actually do. Marysiu, what is the role of the PMO? What do you think?
Yeah, that is actually a very good question. And I remember a few years back when I was working for a multinational bank, there was a more junior colleague that approached me with very strong determination. And she told me, Marysia, I've come to this organization specifically to learn what the role of the PMO is. So what are the specific tasks? What are the responsibilities? What are the day-to-day duties? And what is definitely out of scope? And then I remember I thought to myself, oh my, this is going to be a journey. because of those different roles, those different cultural variances, and of those different maturity models. But I actually think that if we would use, the 5 dimensions that actually PMI with PwC proposed to check the maturity of PMOs, we can bring it into some simple terms. So I would actually like to start with the governance, because I believe that's most obvious for any PMOs, and that is also the aspect that you, Laura, started with. That also says a lot about our perception. And for this one, I think it's really important for the PMOs to provide transparency and clarity on who are the key decision makers within the organization. So, for example, who can decide on launching a project, on killing a project, on introducing change in a project. I think the whole organization needs to be very clear and transparent on that. And in that sense, we are providing kind of a map for all the people within the organization so that they can travel smoothly and navigate, between those different stakeholders and decision makers. What we also need to do in terms of governance is provide clear visibility. So the reporting part that you mentioned, Laura, on what is the project performance, what is the status, what went well and what didn't go so well, and where we need to escalate some risks or changes or issues so that they will not, explode into our faces at some point. So that would be the element of governance. I'm not sure if you would like to comment already, Laura.
Well, what I think is that PMO can be the most powerful tool of influence in an organization, because organization purposes, as I said before, well, my colleagues are used to hear me talking about results, but I think it's everything. It's about results in companies. Right, so organizations' purpose is to deliver the goals that are defined and aligned based on a strategy and a vision. And PMOs have to know, and they used to know, the organizations, who is who in an organization, which are the strategic goals. PMO must be aware of that. Which is the budget, the priorities. So having that knowledge, they can influence the people to be focused on what has to be done to deliver what is linked to the goals of the company. For the companies, it's a challenge to implement a structure that is efficient, that is flexible when it's required, that is lean to operate, and making that everyone is focused into the proper goals. And not in every organization is understood like that, but PMO is Project Management Office. And as I understand.
Yeah.
Portfolio Management Office and
programs, portfolios, yes.
The natural meaning of these 3 letters used to be Project Management Office. And every goal that we need to reach is a project, no matter the type of goal. You always have someone that has to perform a task, some time that requires that task, maybe some cost, of course, some tool. And this is a project. So the PMO must be the tool that boosts the occurrence, the happening, what is required to deliver those projects. And what we are doing in Cellnex, Poland at this moment is pretty different from what is done in headquarters or other countries in Cellnex, because after 1 year we have been focused on supporting the project managers on executing the projects according to the roadmap, gathering all the initiatives, but very focused on complying with the dates, complying with the scope. And when it comes to reporting and to metrics, we have some metrics, and we look at them to identify our points of improvement and how to influence there. But we are not producing reports yet. So meaning that in Cellnex Poland, so far, first is the delivery, and second is the controlling, because when we deliver the projects, no one asks how. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually, thank you for mentioning the alignment in integration. This is actually the second, of the most important aspects for the PMO role. And I believe that what we need to start is from the very top, from actually the portfolio level. So all the projects within the organization need to be aligned with the company mission, vision, strategy, and overall business goals. And what the PMO also needs to do is to ensure that all of the goals are translated into specific initiatives, so projects, and that the KPIs that we are using for measurements are also aligned with the strategy. Because if the company in its strategy, for example, wants to reduce time to market, that is what we should be measuring for our projects. If we are focusing on, budget or quality, then we should also kind of design the KPIs so that they would be actually measuring what we need to achieve. So this alignment and also the focus on results, I totally agree with that, is also key here. And that is also the PMO role to ensure it, but not only for the strategy level to portfolio, but also, for example, within a program to ensure that all the projects within the program are also aligned, that dependencies are being managed, and actually the PM processes are aligned across the organization, because we may have different functions and the projects are delivered across those functions and they need to be working really well together. So yeah, I see that as the key second element for us. I would like to briefly just touch upon the processes, because I believe that many PMOs don't have that many problems with understanding their role in terms of project management processes. What I see as a challenge is being able to adapt them to different teams that may be working in waterfall or agile model, to different situations, to continuously check, the performance of the processes and make improvements. Do not wait until, it passes like 5 years and then we are making the change, but continuously check if anything should be changed.
I agree totally with you that the PMO can have a lot of influence to help project managers to anticipate to the risks, to anticipate, to take action when required, to avoid deviations, to avoid missing points that might twist the goal or the result of the project.
So just a comment on the technology and data. I have actually one caution here. I'm not sure what you would think on that, Laura. Because I've seen many times that the PMOs sometimes start being like, the administrators for the portfolio management tooling because of all the fancy features that, some tools may bring. So, we have really multiple tools right now on the market. And if we get too keen on the technology that supports projects, we may forget that the idea of technology is actually to support the projects, support the delivery, and not the other way around. And I see that this is the trap that many PMOs have fallen into.
Yeah, it depends very much on the leader of the PMO and how he or she understands the purpose of the PMO. And that makes a total difference because, of course, tools might be very fancy, even funny. And when you like to fulfill fields and put colors and all of that stuff. But then is that you might not be totally focused on which is your purpose, your reason to be, that is the result, the execution of the projects, complying with the commitments that are behind of those projects related to the time, to the scope, to the quality, whatever. But this is, at the end, the reason to be of the PMO, of the PM, and of the leader of this portfolio management.
And for the people, I think that on the PMO role, I think it's pretty obvious, and I think, Laura, that you also mentioned that the PMO should support also project managers in increasing their skills in the project management area. I think a good idea is also to start some kind of communities of expertise. So, for example, for project managers or for product owners or for program managers, so that they can exchange their experiences, their knowledge, and learn from each other what works and what maybe not be a good idea for the organization. And actually, I think that there is an area for development of PMOs that we may not only focus on the strictly project management skills, like, scheduling, budgeting, risk management, and so on, but also some of the soft skills that many project managers are, struggling with. So negotiation skills, influencing people. I think also adaptability to change would be a development area for many project managers. And I think that's something to consider for the PMOs to start thinking about.
Absolutely. From that experience that I mentioned before in that logistics company, where I see the mistake is that, as you said, the project manager has to have a very specific profile. It can be open, but at least it must be an organized person with a capacity of negotiation. For me, I like to say that they must be creative and positive hunters of results.
So actually, I think that the role is pretty clear, and what we do here, we just wanted also to give you some insights from the survey. Obviously, it's just part of the survey. If you're interested in getting the full report, feel free to contact us. But I think that it's also important to mention why it's worth actually investing in the PMO, why it is worth, building that function, why it's worth, developing that and increasing the maturity. And in the same survey that I told you about at the very beginning, it was also checked how the best performing PMOs match against the total performance of the companies that they were working with, because the researchers identified top 10% that were super performance in terms of PMO, and then they compared to the results that their companies had. So as you can see here, the revenue growth was actually 2 times as big compared 2020 to 2019 as compared to the other companies that didn't have those top-notch PMOs. And when it comes to customer satisfaction, it was even larger because it was 3 times as big. So if you were ever wondering when talking to your CEO, CIO, CFO, whatever C person that you're talking to, who would be your sponsor maybe for the PMO, for making improvements or for setting up the function, I think it's important to have those numbers, because those are the results that I know, Laura, you're so passionate about.
Yes, if PMO is really aligned with the strategy of the company and the goals that are expected to achieve, and they are the tool that can transmit that to the project managers and help them to adapt to every situation, because situation in companies changes a lot, and they can adapt and take proper decisions at every time according to what is actually happening on the strategic layer. Then the execution of the projects will bring some impact more and more aligned with the goals of the company. So absolutely, that it makes sense.
Okay. So a few hints for you on what to do to actually become closer to those top 10%. And that is also linking us to the topic of the webinar, the question that you asked at the very beginning, Carolina. So what to do for the PMO not to be the necessary evil, but rather the efficiency booster. So we've prepared for you a list of those key differentiators between those top 10% and the remaining PMOs. And here they are. And starting from the top, the C-suite considers the PMO to be a strategic partner, supports it, recognizes and appreciates the PMO role, and actively involves PMO into the strategy operationalization. And we can see here that for the top 10 performance PMOs, the result was 94% against 70% for the remaining companies. So I believe that this disparity is really large. But when it comes to the adaptability to change, there was also a question if the PMO supported the acceleration of new ways of working in response to pandemic. No, actually, our world's changed a lot those 3 years ago, and PMOs played very different roles in organizations. I know that in PwC, the PMO actually was responsible for coordinating the whole process of, setting the new ways of working, prepared a guidebook for everybody, coordinated, checking the requirements on the hardware to be shipped and shipment of that hardware, and was very much involved in managing all that process. So as you can see, those top 10 PMOs, in that case, that's 75% against 57. The next one is also on the adaptability. And I think here the difference is most drastic, because when it comes to the question, PMO continuously adapts processes to different projects and teams. For the top 10 performance, we have 92% against 35 among others.
This is very, very, very interesting, and I think it's very linked. Is the actual facts of what we are discussing, because the more aligned the PMO is with the strategy, and it is a mechanism to transmit this to the project managers to make them or help them to take the proper decisions and to adapt what they are doing to be more in alignment with what is expected, then the result and the percentage is higher. Maybe in the lower results is because PMO is more linked to that part of administrative tasks and controlling and giving aggregated visibility to the C-level, but not really to boost the results as we have in the umbrella of this webinar.
Yeah, so I think a good sanity check for all of us to try and think, when was the last time we adopted one of our, sacred PM processes to the teams, to the stakeholders that we are working with. The two remaining factors, PMO enables coordination and collaboration with stakeholders, and that was 69% for the top 10% against 52. And I think here we are also touching a very important aspect of stakeholder management, which I'm afraid is very often neglected. And we as PMOs cannot be afraid to go and talk to any kind of stakeholder, however senior they might be, to express our opinion freely, and not to be afraid to also set the stakeholders together for them to work on a solution if there is, for example, a conflict, which is not a very rare case, we might say.
Yes, we have to talk with the stakeholders, but also to listen a lot, to really try to understand what it is actually behind of what they are thinking of, what they are saying, because it might not be always the same thing. We need to listen a lot as well, and to really define a project that covers end-to-end the goal that is expected. Stakeholders are key, and sometimes it is not included. If we are handling a software development project to deliver a solution, in many cases, it is not considered the whole scenario with this new solution is going to be integrated to be part of the company and to be effective on the business process execution. So in the plans, in the project definition of a project, the stakeholders and what is required on the stakeholder side to make a project as a success, it is really important. And for that, the PMO, who knows very well who is who in the company, can help a lot to try to avoid missing gaps in the project's definition.
Raised a very, very important point here, with listening, but also being really experts on non-verbal communication, because people may be saying us one thing, but then doing the other, and that may be confusing sometimes.
Yes, here it's important, the communication, because there are risks in projects that are related to people, and that are sometimes you find a blocker, a stakeholder, and it is because he or she felt that he was not involved on the right moment or when she or he was expecting. And it might be testing, but hopefully we don't face these situations that are more related to egos management in organizations.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. With the egos management, I really like that. We should add it, as one of the areas of project management, I believe. The last point, the last differentiator was not as drastic as, adapting processes, but that's on promoting continuous learning culture. And I believe that there is a lot to be done by the PMOs here, ensuring that there are lessons learned at the end of each project, that we have retrospectives so that we can check how we are doing and improve our ways of working. But we are also transmitting the good practices from one team to another.
Yes, it is. This retrospective, I see them as something internal to the PMO, and decide internally in the PMO what we have to communicate and which points to touch with the project managers and the stakeholders as well, to be more successful or more accurate on what is expected from us and from the project's result. So that's why I see that PMO can be a powerful tool of influence on the organizations.
Thank you. It sounds like it's really beneficial to have the PMO in the organization, I would say. PMOs have many faces and participate in many processes across the organization. And I feel like it must be quite a challenge to create such a team, right? So what are the key challenges when setting up a PMO team? Laura, what are your experiences here?
Well, first I would say that I would talk about 3 ingredients. That is the alignment with the business that we have already said, of course, for many reasons that we have just gone through. The budget, first the roadmap. Identify all initiatives that are going on the organization, the initiatives that are required to reach the goals of the company, and include those initiatives in a common view, in a roadmap that provides the visibility also of at which moment in time those must be delivered, and under which, the third ingredient, which budget. And when it comes to the challenges, the challenges are also to drive the project managers, for me, the project managers, to build realistic and detailed plans. Sometimes the planning are high level because everyone understands more or less what has to be done related to those high level tasks. But for me and from my experience, building very detailed plans that might require an effort, of course, and that requires to analyze very deep what is needed to do to be successful on the project. But when you have that detailed plan, and in my way of working and in my experience, you take that plan every week, on a weekly basis, Monday morning, meeting with the team, and you say, what do I have to do during this week to be successful and to be aligned with a plan? It is supposed that your plan is well defined. Then to focus on that week, on everything that has to be done during this week, transmit it to the team. And if there are missing things from the previous week, okay, analyze that, which is the impact on the current week. And if it impacts on a deviation, adapt. And at the end, if it impacts on the critical path or on the budget, then you need to communicate to the sponsor. That is also a challenge. A challenge is the role of the sponsor in organizations. A project must have a sponsor. Understanding the sponsor as can be the person that gets the most benefit, the highest benefit from the delivery of the project. And that person is the one that has to take decisions when some changes in the scope appear, because during the project someone has to bring a new requirement. And then we start with that new requirement, and then, no, there's a deviation because someone put another requirement. Okay, but was it validated? Who said, yes, let's take this requirement on board, assuming any delay, assuming any impact on the budget? Okay, the decision can be also to, okay, we take into account this requirement and we put it in the backlog for the second phase, because at the end it might be required the second phase. So this is maybe going too much on the details, but for me it's very important to ensure that we have a very detailed plan and a sponsor very well identified and with a clear role. Then another point is the governance that we implement for the PMO and how the communication flows between the project managers and flows through the management as well with the stakeholders to ensure that we provide the visibility inside the projects that is required because of the scenario where the project is living, and also to ensure that we provide the visibility to the stakeholders and the management about what is going on and which help we need from them. Because it is very important to ask for help, to ask for clarification. And for that, we need to establish the tools, which is the governance, the forums, to discuss about the projects. Another challenge is the operational readiness. PMO is focused, or we might consider that is focused on the project's delivery. And projects are very important, what we deliver, how we execute that. But the real life and what gives the result, the figures, the numbers, the money on the companies, it's what is running in production. So when we deliver a project, we need to take very, very much into consideration how that solution, that new initiative will be operated. Not only software development projects or technology solution, but any other type of initiative, campaign or whatever that is design, we need to put as part of the project how it will be operated and what do we have to organize with people, where and when, to ensure that when this is running and giving the actual results of the company, it is according to what is expected.
Thank you. Mauricio, do you have anything else to add here?
Yes, actually, but I really like the part on change management, because that is a topic that many organizations struggle with. And I believe this point of handing over to operations and, ensuring that what we have worked on actually is integrated into operations and starts bringing those benefits that were the key reason why we launched the project is an area for development in many companies nowadays. I would like to actually add some points more on the soft side. I would say more on the people side, because I believe that, what you mentioned, Laura, with the sponsor, getting the executive support and getting the right sponsor that would actually care and will be actually looking forward to the results of your project is not as easy as we might think. And another challenge that I see here is maintaining the support. So getting it, at the very beginning where we have the kickoff of the project, maybe not that hard because everybody's excited. We are starting something new. There are some glamorous benefits waiting for us. But then ensuring that we will have the support along the way as the project moves is also important and is not that easy. The attention span tends to be shorter and shorter, especially, the people on the highest positions have really lots on their plates. So PMs need to be really smart in, when they interact with their stakeholders and what they tell them and what they hear from them.
Another, taking your what you have said, another challenge is to establish a project organization. Who has to do what? Who will be in charge of the definition of the requirements gathering? Who will be in charge of actually producing what is expected? Who will be in charge of testing? Who is the sponsor? Who is the project manager? Who is the support from PMO? That helps a lot to have this very, very clear, because all of that people and all the stakeholders that have to be part at some point on time during the project execution must be aware of what is expected from them. Because in many cases, when we don't consider that, I arrive to you suddenly and say, Marisha, you need to go dancing. You need to start the testing. And you say, me now? Why? But I was not aware. I cannot do it now. and then we have a delay. And it's not fair, because if we communicate to everyone that has to be involved on the project, about when is expected from them that they take some part of the execution of the project, they can help us to adapt it to a realistic plan. If that person is not going to be available in the moment in time when we expect because of some reason, it can be even vacation. We all are worth to have vacation, but the project organization, to have it very, very clear for everyone, helps a lot to be efficient.
Yeah, and with PMO, it's actually very similar to any kind of project. So setting up a PMO is actually a project on its own. So you need to really ensure that. And on the other side of the process, we have all those people who will be actually impacted by this change. So overcoming resistance to change will also be very challenging for you when you would like to set up a PMO. And I will not state the obvious that the only permanent thing right now is that everything's changing. But I think it's also pretty clear that people in general do not like change. With one exception, that is about the change that we ourselves invent and want to implement. That is the change we love. But every time when somebody comes to us with a change proposal, we usually are very reluctant. And one more thing to remember here is building common understanding. And actually, there are so many organizations that when we started with and asked for the list of projects, what we got was projects, operational activities, some best practices. So actually building the common dictionary of what we treat within the organization as a project, what is a program, what is operational activity, what would actually be in scope of the PMO support. That is also key, because without this common dictionary, it's really hard to communicate on what we want to achieve. So that builds actually the basis for our cooperation. And just the last one, sorry, Carolina, but it's really important. And that's, I think one of the toughest ones, because it takes time to convince people to change. Obviously, it is a lengthy process. But at the same time, when we are setting up a PMO, we are expected to deliver results, right? To deliver those benefits and do it really fast. So we as PMO really need to be selective on what we want to start first. We need to have a plan, what would actually be most beneficial for an organization at the very beginning, and then have this backlog of the things that we want to do later on.
Okay, so it seems like we already know how to start. So now maybe let's focus on how to succeed, and to be precise, what are the key pitfalls to avoid? Laura, what do you think?
Well, the key, I'm sorry.
No worries. I can start. So I think we mentioned that, having the sponsor, having the alignment, understanding your strategy is key for you to start your PMO. And I'm not sure actually how many of you, and we will not do a poll on that, but how many of you were in a situation where somebody said, okay, so now we need to start this PMO without really deep understanding what we want to achieve with that. What is the purpose? Is the company, for example, struggling with transparency? Do they need to have more clarity on what's going on within the organization? Do they have, for example, very low success ratio for the projects and want to increase that? Is there a problem with risk management or resource management? We need to know the business need, the underlying business need, before we start setting up the function.
Yes, I agree with that. How I would say which are the key pitfalls to avoid is to focus on the past and ignoring the present. That is what you are saying. Because when we focus on the past and on telling what has been done and asking people, project managers, about feedback of the status of the project and what has been done, and sometimes we miss a little bit what has to be done to actually get the results. And people feel very comfortable telling what they have done. And naturally, they hide or ignore a little bit what they have missed or what has to be done. For me, it is very symptomatic when in an organization, in the information where appears the tasks to do, for PMO, for a project, there only appear the name of the area, not the name of a specific people, the specific persons that is accountable for that task. When I face that, normally that organization is focused on what I say the past, that is more focused on what has been done instead of what needs to be done. And when it comes to ignoring the present, to implement, to set up a PMO, we need to be very aware about how the organization works. Where do they have the problems, the challenges? We cannot arrive to implement a PMO into an organization like, as we say in Spain, like an elephant entering into a pottery store, right? We need to listen, to look, to identify the charismatic people, also to engage them in what is going on, and start designing a plan for the PMO setup according to that reality, and step by step, not everything at once.
We have the same expression in Polish as well.
Okay, good.
I confirm. So I'm wondering which of those pitfalls you have experienced, either personally or if you've seen someone falling into those traps. So let us know what are the key pitfalls to avoid.
Wondering if that would be, the starting without the understanding business need, or, waiting for perfection. I know that many of the PMOs are perfectionists and want to have everything, ideal before they share it. And I believe it's actually no use, because you may be working on something for a year and then figure out when you share it to stakeholders that it's totally different that they wanted to see.
Yes, but as PMO, we must help the rest of the organization to have wide open eyes and to look around, not only their business, because many situations, for example, in telco industry, when you are willing or you are handling a project that is related to the network, you make a plan and then you miss the freezing period. Yeah. How can you miss that? And then it results that the project has a delay. And we need to help to understand the whole environment of the organization. And it is normal that the people is focused on their business, but there is the PMO to have that cross visibility.
It seems like we have the results. So we have the winner, and this is implementing everything at once. And then they're two equal, so starting without understanding their business need and waiting for perfection instead of getting feedback fast. Yeah. Is it what you expected?
I'm actually surprised that implementing everything at once is, on the top of the list, I have to say. But yeah, I can see that numbers are still changing. So it's like, voting and waiting for the final result. But I do see a tendency for that actually as well, to have, everything in place. And that goes actually very well with, having the perfection. We have to have, the full system ready before we launch. And sometimes it has to be done this way. For example, when we talk about, space travel, I can't see any iterations on that. But when we are implementing PMOs, we should start with the most important part, the one that brings most results, and that is actually giving the most value to the organization, and not wait for the whole set to be ready. Because we may, miss the requirements. Quite often, we learn what customer wants only after we provide them with the results, and they tell us that it's totally not what they wanted. So, getting the feedback first is really important. But if we implement everything at once, what we may also face would be, large disturbance within the organization. People will not understand what we are requiring of them. They will have lots of questions. We will skip the opportunity to learn from implementing one process and implementing the feedback to another. So I think it's really key here. I'm positively surprised that making it all about technology and tools is not that high.
Well, when it comes to the first result, I understand that sometimes people might have felt that PMO has been intrusive when implementing their, like the elephant entering in a pottery shop, and PMO again has a very important role, listening. listening to understand the way of working that is in the organization where we are arriving to setting up a PMO, that they have had that way of working for years. So we need to understand very well that, and to identify where we can influence the first thing to get the fastest result, to start building the trust. And building the trust will be opening the doors to the rest of the processes that has to implement the PMO. So first is showing that we are helping them to have better results on their personal performance and work, and maybe sometimes it's more intrusive than that. So room of improvement.
Yeah. And I think it has been actually proven that the Kaizen approach of introducing, change in small steps reduces the reluctance to change and, helps people assimilate that faster.
So now the question is, where to start to bring the most value? Let's go back to the presentation, please. Marysiu, what is your recommendation?
Well, as I think we mentioned that before, but I think we can also treat it as a kind of a summary for this whole webinar and some tips for you from both of us. I think understanding the why, the purpose, is the key element. Without it, you cannot move on, because you may end up all sorts of different things that the organization needs. Then identify and engage sponsor and maintain their engagement, as I mentioned before. Identify and implement low-hanging fruits. I think those are the results that we want to achieve fastest. So we need to first understand the setup you're in. So what are the projects that are being delivered? What is the maturity level of the processes within the organization? And then figure out, as you usually do when prioritizing projects, do the same prioritization mechanisms for what you are supposed to do with PMO. So what will bring most benefits? What can you achieve with least effort and fastest? And start with that, because delivering results, as you, Laura, mentioned, will build trust that you are capable of doing that it's worthy to have you as a PMO on board. Obviously then, measure what you've done. If you reach the KPIs that you wanted, gather feedback, listen to your stakeholders, and then implement improvements. I think we've said a lot about communication. So that's why we have, communicate 3 times here. Communicate your successes, communicate your failures, communicate your challenges. Whenever you need support, be open about that. Do not hide anything. And once you're ready with the first part, try to automate as much as possible and then expand to the next area. That would be my advice.
I think that you have said almost everything. I totally agree. And the why is so important, because the people, we better perform when we understand why are we doing this and for what. Now a project pops up to my mind. It's a software development project, where after 1 year of development in an agile mode, but discussing about agile methodology would bring
or agile-ish
would bring another hour of webinar. But they were working on such a mode and delivering a lot of code. 1 year, 5 developers maybe. Crazy. And a lot of functionalities already done, but none of them could be used. Why? Because there were not a total process supported by all the functionalities developed. So when we identified that there was such effort in that project, and we helped to organize and structure the functionalities to support specific processes, and the team understood which was the purpose of the process, then we started actually delivering useful functionalities for the business. And just to add where to start, also for me, a good starting point is as well to build a roadmap, to gather and try to identify all the initiatives that are being handled in the organization. Because in many organizations, there are teams that have not clear if what they are doing is a project or is a operation support. And to split and differentiate, helping them to differentiate what is what and which are the initiatives that are there and which are the benefits that are expected from those initiatives. It helps a lot, from one side, to understand what is the capacity of the areas and how this capacity is being used. Because sometimes we complain because we don't have capacity to perform a new project, and the management says, why don't they have capacity for this? But we say, no, because we are doing all of this. A roadmap helps a lot to prioritize, to take decisions, and to show what we are doing. And for me, this is a good starting point as well.
Thank you. These were amazing tips. As our time is running out, let's move to the Q&A part, as we have some questions to both of you. Okay, so let me read them. The first one, regarding the gap for the PMO continuously adapts processes for different projects and teams, do you think it is connected with lack of agility in organizations? Marysiu.
I think it can be connected with the lack of agility, but it may also be connected with how easy it is for the PMO to get approval for, changing those processes, on their determination to change them, but also on their communication with the teams and the stakeholders. So those three factors, I think, are key, because you first need to know that something needs to be adapted, that somebody is struggling with something. Then you have to have a plan on how you want to improve that, and you have to get the approval, because of the governance, obviously, on implementing that. So I think that, those three elements should be there. So if it's not working in your organization, I would think on which element is lacking.
Thank you. So we have another question to Laura this time. You mentioned that PMOs are one of the most powerful people in companies. Don't you think that sometimes their role is underestimated, so they not always have enough power, influence to perform their tasks? Thank you.
Thank you. Question. Well, for me, it's considering that is a tool of influence, not powerful people, but powerful tool of influence. And which was the question at the end? Sorry.
Don't you think that sometimes their role is underestimated, so that they don't have enough power to perform their tasks?
Yes. Well, it can be underestimated because the role is not well understood. It might be in those organizations where PMO is more understood to link to administrative tasks more than a way of or a tool to reach the goals. Then when an organization understands that PMO is what can help to make a different to bring a differentiator situation when it comes to the goals achievement, then of course all the visibility that is required, the alignment with the business will be provided to the PMO. But on the other side, to really be estimated, we need to start building the trust, step by step, listening. It is very good to identify which are the charismatic people in the organizations. There are always people who are influencers of others, and start working with them, but building the trust. And if you trust what you are doing, step by step, being constant and consistent will help a lot to have that consideration.
Thank you, Laura. We'll answer the remaining questions via email. Laura, Marysiu, thank you very much for this great discussion. It was amazing to have you here.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure, and always learning from you as well. And I expect that we maybe can answer the questions through some other tool offline.
I think via email.
Yeah. Okay, we will do that.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. And I keep my fingers crossed for your PMO development efforts. Good luck.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.